everybody. Thank you for coming out on this rainy Sunday. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. My name is Lisa Seidel. I'm the Vice President of the Board. Because this is an official meeting, we have a few procedural items to take care of first, and then I'll go ahead and introduce our facilitator. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Board Secretary in the following manner. Posting written notice on the official school bulletin board at the Administration Building on January 29, 2019. Transmitted notice to the Courier Post and Philadelphia Inquirer on January 29, 2019. Transmitted notice to the Clerk of Cherry Hill Township on January 29, 2019. And pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, the board will meet to conduct a town hall meeting at Rosa Middle School in the Media Center. No formal action will be taken at this meeting. And if board members could stand when Mrs. Sugar calls roll. Mrs. Matlack? Here. Mrs. Neary? Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel? Here. Mrs. Scarpolino? Mrs. Schultz? Mrs. Tong? Here. Dr. Wong?
Yeah.
Mr. Goodwin? Okay. Again, thank you for joining us. This is our fifth and final bond referendum forum. The board and the administration are very thankful for your feedback. We're interested in hearing what you discussed today. In addition, the survey links are up and available, so hopefully you've already taken a few minutes to complete the survey. If you haven't and could do that, we would be greatly appreciative of that. And if you could spread that to your friends and neighbors, that information, that would be great. And then lastly, just a reminder, if you're interested in serving on the ad hoc committee, that information is also posted on our website. So I'd like to take a minute to introduce our facilitator today. Dr. Judith Wilson is with us, and she's the former superintendent of Princeton Public Schools, and she's worked with a number of school districts in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania on things like this strategic initiative, and we'd like to welcome her today.
Well, thanks. It's so good to be with all of you, and I have to echo the thoughts and really amazing that so many very interested citizens, parents, residents have come forward in these forums to be very constructive, right? To be very productive and to be very constructive. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that you're here on this busy day, even with a time change. And we're going to get right down to thinking about the key questions that I'm going to ask you to work together at the tables on, and then we'll come together in a large group at the end of about an hour to think about a bigger question together. So clarifying the purpose here, your Board of Education has been very, very thoughtful in pausing, right, and saying, we recognize what happened in the defeat of the referendum in December. The facilities aren't going to heal themselves, right? They're not going to miraculously be in great shape. Something still needs to be addressed and done. And they have, very thoughtfully, I think, paused to say, let's first of all take stock and hear constructive recommendations on what could have been different in terms of communication, in terms of balancing, in terms of the work that's to be done. And then also, you know, with half a foot forward, also thinking what needs to come next and how should that be crafted. So, of course, at the end of this hour, we're not going to go away with the recipe or the formula for do this next. But over the course of these 5 forums, certainly dozens of very, very specific, great ideas have come forward from community members. And they are, first of all, you're being live streamed, so thus the video camera. Secondly, the notes from today, from your tables, will be compiled and archived on the website for all the public to have access to. And those notes are fueled, right? They're fodder for what's going to happen as the board reconstructs and constructs the next steps for the community. So it's a little protocol we're going to follow as we have in the other forums. And you'll see what's at your table. So at every table, there is, first of all, a copy of the ballot questions as they were presented in December. Just in case you need to refer to them, some people found them useful. There is a set of questions and And the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is stick to the question as a group. I'll time everyone, I'll move us along to the next question. So just address one question at a time at your tables as we do together. And then, this is where everyone looks down and not at each other, but there are blank pages, a page for every question. And I'd ask that someone at your table, you can take turns, but someone scribe your ideas in response to each question and actually discuss them. Your goal is not to agree, right? Your goal is to generate as many specific thoughts, recommendations, constructive pieces of criticism as you can at your table. You might want to get in debate or discussion, but I'm going to say that's not your goal, right? It might happen, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to really think, this is what I'd like to have said and recorded and known in response to this question, and be as specific as you can be, because the more specific you can be, the more the board has to, and the ad hoc committee have to grab hold on as they move forward with a new plan. Okay? Fair enough, so we'll try a question, and it'll go easily and smoothly, and if you feel like there are 2 and 2, and there's still some folks coming in who might join you, if you'd like to join a bigger group, that's fair game also, and you can move around. If you really say, after 3 questions, for the next 3 questions, I want to move to a different table, go right ahead and do that also. Right? So, you do need a scribe within a few minutes, but the first question is this. This is actually about the preparation before the vote, right? Before you went to the polls. Were the facility needs clearly identified? Was supportive evidence of the needs shared? Was there any piece missing in identification of those needs? And do you think that some no votes were because people actually wanted more work or different work done? So if you can stick to those questions, believe me, you'll have a chance to speak about communication and ballot questions and the tax increase in other questions. But if you could stick to that question and generate responses at your table, no right or wrong answers, whatever you think goes. But ask someone to, as long as it's legible, it's good. It could be phrases, bullet points, as long as it's legible, good. We'll just spend about 7 minutes with each question. So, anybody can. So you've got the question at your table.
I'll write. Good ladies. This is my big sister. She's a junior. My brother had, like, it could be a phone on the computer. My friend's uncle and aunt, they were What about me? before the I would say, yeah.
Support evidence of the security measures. I'm freezing. I can't snap. I waste my answer. I just kind of like go sit for a while. Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
Midway shut. Mine.
Exactly.
Unless it's directly related to mine.
So thank you. Some of you are moving ahead and solving the problem already, and that's a great thing in your discussions. But we're going to take the next few steps one specific question at a time. I'm going to ask you to turn to question B. And it's about the ballot itself. 3 questions were on the ballot, with question 2 dependent upon the passage of question 1, and question 3 dependent upon question also the passage of 1. Would a single question have been a better approach? In a future referendum, would you still prefer to see choices of multiple interdependent questions, and if so, why? So just think about the structure of not just one big question, but multiple questions. If you could just address that for just a few moments. Thanks.
It could have been. I see.
That's what I'm saying. I agree, but people don't. So, how many people do you reach? Yeah, I think there was like, yes, no, exactly. So, there were some that were but anyway, I don't think that there were many options. So that's, and some people may have sort of when this thing gets
So if you would be so good as to turn your attention to question C, which is about voter turnout. Okay, so voter turnout was not high. It was less than 21% of the registered voters. And just to give you a little benchmark, I think the midterm election was over 40%. Right, so just to give you a little benchmark there. I'd like you just to think back, if you would, for a few minutes about what was effective about the Get Out the Vote effort and what could be improved. If we were going back out in a year for another referendum, what would get more voters to the polls, like physically or absentee, get people to vote? What suggestions do you have for that Get Out the Vote work in the next referendum?
I thought the reason was because they wanted more focus. They didn't want it to be police. Like people were like, oh, I don't really care. Just, like people came after you and talked about for this. I did.
That's what I mean. I do and they're communities. They're not schools. Right, I only got it because I'm a school person. I did. Oh, absolutely. So the next one gets a little more specific. The very first question on the ballot, the base question, carried a 0 tax impact and 37% state aid, and yet it was defeated by a 10% margin. What were the main factors that you think contributed to the defeat of that base question that had a 0% tax impact and 7% state aid? If the same no tax impact single question were asked again today, do you think it was passed? Why or why not? So, don't worry about the conjecture piece, but the content. Right? Why can a 0 tax impact, high state aid question pass?
So I feel like
I would think he's
would come together and say
But it's just more correct. But this is exactly right.
Forms support.
Yeah.
So as a team, I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to one last question before we work as a full group. And the question is the one that trips up every organization, every relationship, right? Communication, communication, communication. So if you could think about that and target that specifically right now, was the communication from the district clear, timely, comprehensive? What would you add or change? And what role did social media content that was not sponsored by the district play in your thinking and in the referendum campaign? Was it a challenge for people to know what information was accurate and what was to be trusted? So just think about the whole communication piece, because, as I said, in every organization, in every relationship, it's communication, communication, communication. So what recommendations do you have? What things would you like to see done differently, better? Go to it for just a few minutes, and then we'll open up to the entire floor. Thanks.
Yeah, we need to, yeah.
I think this is access to
Feel safe to say that in action.
No, they start to wear me down. Right, so that's why I agree.
Thank you. So you have covered a lot of territory. I'll thank the scribes, and also just say to the scribes, don't leave with your notes. Make sure that I get your notes before you leave so that they can be collected and posted on the website in the next week or two and fed into thinking of the ad hoc committee. So for you to not only hear each other, but also for you to put forth ideas, constructive criticism, recommendations that were not addressed by these particular questions or that you would like to have emphasized. You know, the bottom line here is your recommendations. What are your best? No one in the room has to agree with you. What are your best recommendations for the board and the administration to consider as they continue to address these facility needs? Because as we started in the beginning, they need to be addressed. Right? So there has to be next step. So in formulating that next step, from your point of view, from your experience, what do you offer to the board and the administration? Like, think about this, consider this. Don't do it this way again. Do it that way the next time. What is it? Content, and content, communication, priority work, whatever it is that you really believe. Like, let's be sure we say this specifically. Mrs. Sugars will record the notes from this session, and they'll all feed in. So, if you can be, specific and concise, that would be great. And no names. No names. Just action. Great. Thinking and action. So who would like to start us off? Because we've generated dozens and dozens of great recommendations from this closing part. Yes?
I think that if things were less abstract, if they were more the proposed cost, so that we know it's not abstract. It's not like just throw me out all this money that they're proposing to spend. If we had something that was more understandable and concrete, an actual visual.
So a virtual tour or tours, more tours in the schools, and that specificity. Thank you. We're going to combine it right in here. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Other thoughts? Yes, sir.
I think you needed to prioritize from the most important down to the nice to haves. In an environment where you've got buildings that are end of life, and a lot of them are end of life. Publish in its entirety this architectural report, which was done on these buildings, so that the community can have a full understanding of what is going on that is sinking into the ground.
So two recommendations. Publish the full, yeah, no, I just want to be sure we've got them. Publish the full architectural report, right? And prioritize the needs to say, this building is X years old, this is what we're proposing we put into it, and these are the priorities for it.
But overall, I mean, just as you're budgeting something and you are budgeting new office spaces in question one, which was appropriate when you've got asbestos and all kinds of other issues that are major issues that face the students every day. It's nice for our administrators to have a nice office, more important for the children to be safe in the environment that they're in when they're learning. Third thing is, there was no look whatsoever at what goes 10 years beyond when this bond's passed.
So longer term.
Longer term focus, and we also should be focused on, is it worth spending $200+ million on buildings that are end of life, and then taking that $200 million and knocking it down into the dirt when you absolutely are going to have to rebuild them anyway.
So renovations versus new construction, right? And a longer term, beyond 10 years, what's the outlook?
Vision plan, just like any other municipality has.
Thank you.
But I would add to that
Yes.
is not just renovate versus knock down, but also consolidate versus keeping that school building from happening.
So where is the consideration in the study on consolidating any buildings at all?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
I think that was part of our discussion. Is there was a general sense among many parents that there was a lot more that would have to be done. And what we didn't know, even though I think by the end we knew what the projects were and what they would cost relative to the school, what we didn't know is what would be the total amount that should be done. How do we decide these should be done versus the others should be done? And what would be the plan in the next 20 years for the balance of the list? Let's say that was $300 million, since we would have exhausted probably bond, where could that possibly come from? And I guess, at the end of the day, for many of us, it led nonetheless to a yes vote. However, we didn't think this would be the end of the story, and we didn't see any kind of plan for the rest.
What are the next chapters in the story? And what work was recognized as needing to be done but not addressed by the bond?
Is that right? I think some of us voted yes and some of us voted no. But those of us who voted yes all did so with a lot of reservations and almost voted no because it wasn't big enough.
So it was a cautious yes, knowing there was more work to be done.
Well, but there was a lot of things this gentleman said. I almost voted no because I didn't have answers to all those things. I almost voted no. I voted yes, but I almost voted no for all those reasons.
So with reservations.
A
Right?
lot of reservations.
Thank you. Other points on any topic? Yes, we'll go to you, please.
I think that there needs to be more baseline education on what a bond is. I think that people generally were misinformed in thinking that this is all the construction that will ever happen in our schools ever over the next 10 years, and why is this not included, why is that not included, and not the understanding that this is just a way to pay for things long term, to finance over a long period of time.
Thank you very much.
I was just going to say, from the safety and security standpoint, that was something that I know was on the minds of all parents and the community, but there seemed to be a lot of disagreement in terms of what would actually create a safer school. And I know that the New Jersey Department of Education has an office of school safety and preparedness, and they have many wonderful resources. So I think maybe taking advantage of some of those resources from an informational standpoint, so that everybody understands what the best practices are for creating safe schools.
Thank you. It's a great resource. Other thoughts on any issue? Yes, I do.
There needs to be some sort of education for members of the public on how a school comes up with a number for a project, like a specific project, say any project that goes on in a school, because as a resident, I'm thinking, well, I could put new carpet in my whole house for this cost, even, going to a really nice carpet store. Why couldn't they get the same price at a school? I don't think everyone realizes that
what we're bound by in public schools.
Right. There's a lot of rules and regulations and hoops they have to jump through in order to get the price that they don't really have a choice. That's just the price that New Jersey gives us.
So a little more understanding and education about not only the restrictions, the regulations, but then the low bid process. Anything else? We have a lot of very good table discussions. Yes, thank you.
I think communication was not appropriate or had enough reach. If you weren't a parent in the school, and you got a lot of information if you were a parent in the school, but if you weren't a parent in the school, seniors and people who don't have children, you're not going on the Cherry Hill's website, you're not going on the Cherry Hill Facebook page. The only thing we probably got was the sample ballot in the mail. We were having a discussion here where I live, we don't get the Sun. So the Sun does a lot of school reports, but where I live, we don't get it. So that's not getting to the whole community. There were a lot of focus groups, but they were at schools and synagogues. The Cherry Hill Library is a natural place where people gather. So if there was a forum there, you might have people who didn't even know about it, who are you going to capture and who are going to come in.
There was a forum there.
Oh, there was?
There was a meeting at the
Oh,
library.
okay, good. I didn't see that one. But I mean, natural environments are important. So I think the communication really has to be more far-reaching on all of these issues, so people understand.
Thank you.
I think you also have to open this up when you're going to have to should go to the general election, because basically we locked out the seniors from coming out and voting. They don't drive at night. 3 to 9 is not appropriate for them. It should be a full day of voting. And the main word, and I think we all heard this during the debates over this bond all along, is transparency. The amount of information and the detail, and I will say, because you're coming out of Princeton, we all saw the Princeton bond and several others that were going at the same time, and the level of detail that's available to the citizens of those areas, those bonds, so far exceeded what we were presented with for such a monster-sized bond. It was a little scary.
And I'm gonna picky on the website. So we have a funding issue. We have a fair funding issue in Cherry Hill, and it is parent-driven and parent-led. The district is not putting the effort into the fair funding issue that it should be. So if you're not looking to the state to give us money that is due to us, and you're coming to the residents to say bail us out again, that to me is a concern. And if you go on the district website, the only thing that you will see about fair funding is the statement from Dr. Galash and the president of the DOE, Mr. Goodwin. There is nothing on the website about fair funding. But go to some of these other underfunded districts, or how about the new ones who lost funding? Go to Tom's River's website. It is from the district, it's district driven. Lenape just had a forum on theirs. They have a Cherry Hill resident who is volunteering for PR firm to help them in their fight. We need more involvement from the DOE, from the district administration and their funding.
I totally agree with what you just said.
Thank you.
We couldn't have put it any better.
And your point originally was balancing are we doing everything we can to get what we should every year with the need for more money on the referendum?
Yeah, we're not going to get it all from the state, so we're going to need something. But let's see some leadership in trying to get us more, and let's not be happy with 1.2 million.
And that's, when you start to look at it, and that's one of the things, when you start to look at what's the next step, what's the next bond, keep in mind that people still, especially those on fixed incomes, still have to be able to live in this township. You don't want to have them all chased out of here. There comes a certain point where, yes, it is a bond and it is long-term, but it is paid off by your tax dollars. And when you have multiple bonds, those tax increases on top of, that's on top of it. They take it to the cap 2% we do every single year, okay, which means you go up 10% every 5 years. That it gets to a point that nobody can afford to live in Cherry Hill. And at that point, you have a bigger issue because people are going to flee and your tax base will shrink. So you need to keep that in mind when you're looking at these bonds, because it's not free money, though it's coming from the taxpayers. So,
and just an editorial comment on that, if I may, is that is the state story, right? So that particular story is, it's Cherry Hill, it's North Jersey, it's Central Jersey, it's, right? That is the state story on taxes across the state and people being able to remain long after their children are in school.
That people move away from consistently for the last several years.
I'll get back to you after we hear this. Yes.
I was just going to say that you also have to remember that probably 95% of Cherry Hill residents moved here because of the schools. So we need to keep the schools good. We need to keep
and it
funding
preserves
our
your housing
schools
value.
Because it will eventually.
Yeah, it does preserve your housing value. Absolutely.
But I think her point was more that people are going to leave if the schools aren't good. No one's going to stay when their kids are not going to go to good schools.
Not come or stay. Both are strong factors, right? A local community without a strong school system and great schools is a loss in housing value and community.
So if we just fight over every little detail, we will never pass a bond, and there will never be improvements, and we'll just leave.
So with the scale of this township and the number of schools you have, there is a point at which everyone has to usually give a little and say, I don't like this point, but greater good. Right. Yes.
I just, so a couple of last points we're talking about flight, and I think it's not an insignificant, I mean, other people are saying it is, but I think it's probably the biggest concern we have right now, which is that in doing the bond, I feel that we have exposed that we have a lot of, I mean, we have, for lack of a better, best I can figure is $500 million worth of problems. The solution we had to that is not coming anytime soon. And yet we know that in the size of this town, even though largely we think of government as the one that needs to keep the citizens here, the only reason anyone's here is for the schools. It's one of these strange issues in Cherry Hill where we're the biggest employer, we're the biggest operation, we're the sales piece of why people move here. And for all those reasons, we're the sales piece of why we leave, or why people would leave. How do we, in the space of time, so work with even begin in the best case scenario, which is 2.25 years from now, and things are going to get worse. But I think there's a space of leadership to say, here's the future of Cherry Hill, here's why people should stay, here's why this town, I mean, A, it would be nice to see it could survive, but it would be even better to think can thrive. And I think it's going to be a couple things, but the first thing that has to be solved is the schools. After that, the potholes in the Cherry Hill Mall, they're not going to amount to enough for people to stay Cherry Hill residents. So I would think, like with the administration and the board, I think there's a huge leadership piece to just convince people that we can make this work for Cherry Hill.
There's a balance that has to be struck.
Yes.
It still has to be affordable to stay here for people that, listen, I'm going to be one of them in another 4 months. I'm not going to have a child in the school district anymore for 2-3. My daughter graduates East in June. But I'd love to be able to stay in this town. But you know what? If it gets further beyond what I pay ridiculous amount of money for a very, very small house. I pay more on that house, which is 1,100 square feet, than I have a friend that has a 3,000 square foot house and pays 1/5 of the tax. Okay, so you've got to keep in mind what that is, especially for our seniors. And we have a significant aging population in this township. We don't have the right to chase them out because they can't afford to live here anymore. So there's a balance that has to be struck, which means as you put this bond together, the priorities have to be right. It can't be nice, fancy new offices for people that don't need it. It has to be what is student-facing, what is health-facing, has to be the right answers, and it has to be not pouring money into buildings that you are then going to turn around and tear down, because that is criminal.
I think that moves to the bigger story. You know, your point about there has to be a narrative and there has to be a vision beyond 10 years, right? Everyone needs a story to say, that's it, that's where we're headed together, and that's the community sense of value. Anything else?
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry, yes.
I just want to state a fact that even though compared to 10 years ago, actually the students in enrollment is 400 less. 400 students less in this school district than 10 years ago. So think about it. Why is less? Because I heard something like Voorhees, maybe their school is not as good, but they're okay. They're not too bad. So, and tax maybe in the Morse times lower, and then people move there. And then so there are lots of, and also our school, I look at some academic scores across the street, elementary schools, we have lower academic scores than 10 years ago. So people say, well, Woodcrest used to have 10, like on the grade school ratings. Now it's only 8 or maybe 7, I don't remember. But that's why our enrollment is actually less. It's 400 people less.
Across 19 schools.
Across, yeah. So that's a big problem, I think.
Well, 400 across 19 schools and 12,000 students?
11,000.
Yeah,
11,000
students.
And then
right.
when I compare to that, I look at the stats there here. For East, the enrollment is flat. At West, Cherry Hill West, there are 200 students less. Why is that? I think people still they want to go to better schools.
Well, right, and you're making an assumption. I think that the real issue there is, depending on a good demographic study, which your board has done, you know, where are the population trends, hindsight and forward? What
You
are the
also have a
projections?
tremendous amount of building that's been done in this township, so if anything, those numbers should be going up. But it's rental, and a lot of it's rental, and a lot of it's transitory. And by the way, you know, when you're looking at this, I think you really need to start to partner with the township itself and say, hey, stop bargaining away the taxable rateables in this township, because you need them. You need these new developments to be paying taxes to support the schools, because these developments are putting students in the schools. That has to stop. I mean,
and
it's
you're
got to be a
referring to
partnership between the board and the town.
Yeah, the agreements that are not made between the board and the developers, but between the municipal and the developers in lieu of taxes, pilots in lieu of taxes. Are there new voices or new points? I just want to make sure that if you haven't spoken yet, or if you have a point that hasn't been addressed yet, that gets on the floor.
I have.
Yes.
I just want to make a point that I think the social aspect of it is that, I guess, different from 20 years ago. People are much more, this is the information age, right? Everybody wants information. Everybody's going to shop the internet before they're going to make a decision. Most people are. And they're all looking for information to support their decision. And the township, the school district, is selling. They're the salesperson, and we're the consumers, and we're buying it. We want to make informed decisions about what we're buying, and we want to make sure that we're going to, we understand that we're making a good investment in our town. We moved into Cherry Hill because of schools, and when we know we're going to leave, we want somebody who also wants to be in the schools to buy our house. So we want to make sure we're investing, and we're willing to invest in her. We understand it's going to cost us money, but we think the returns are going to be bigger. But we also are looking for information, and if the information's not there, I'm going to feel like I'm being, blankets are going to be held in my eyes, and you're expecting me to just accept. You know, 20 years ago, we would vote in our board, and we would say, we trust you. We'll just, you're going to get her a yes, except maybe a no. Now we're like, we're no, but convince us we're yes. Give us a reason to follow you and to know your audience, know what you're selling, and know what they're buying. And it's different from different demographics. It's different from people with kids in school versus once the schools are out, and versus the seniors. And try to appeal to them so they can get behind their township and go, I'm proud of my township, and I want to do what's best for our township. And that's, I think, where we may miss
In the big picture, greater good.
Yes.
I think you find a lot of people that don't have kids in the district are still willing to support the tax increase. But again, it has to be transparent, and it has to be for the right priorities. I mean, I don't think people voted no because of priorities were.
I disagree.
So,
I think the tax increase,
Yeah, but they voted no on one.
They voted no on one,
Tax increase,
no
so
tax
that tells you
increase, but-
something.
I mean, the message my husband has said, and we have kids in school, and our taxes are astronomical. They got to figure out a way to shuffle around, do the most important things, but
but
How much
housing is
more can
certainly
you
a
have?
factor, yes, it's certainly a strong factor.
There's a threshold, that's what I meant before.
Another point?
Yes, a good point
Okay.
is that I think aside from the bond, is that the district really needs to look at, if they don't have the capacity with the staff now, to hire a grant writer and to be pursuing alternate funding. Again, I'm gonna go to Lenape, there was a security grant, Lenape just received $1.2 million in security funding. Cherry Hill selected to not even apply. So that's a lost $1 million that we could have had towards the security cost. We need to look at our Ed Foundation and talk to them about other things that they have the ability to do, expand their reach, do a capital campaign, go to the Rabbitses, go to Wegmans, go to companies, go to alumni, go to, I'm an alumni. I mean, I'm a current parent, I'm an alumni. There's a lot of alumni out there who, yeah, okay, I'll write $100 to a capital campaign. We need to look at other bases of funding. It's not going to solve it all, but if we can cut off $10 million or what have you, it's something.
And I think in the bottom line, one of your points is, be sure that we've exhausted all revenue streams. It might not be the building cost, but there might be the books cost.
We paid for 2 turf fields that people were willing to donate for these 2 high schools.
I think, the comment was, I just want to talk about it. So one of the things that our discussion, some of our partners have left, but one of our discussion was how bad are things? And I think the point was made earlier that there's
In terms of facilities?
there's an architectural report, but it's from 2013. And, the board knows what I've done, and they don't know, they told me, but, we have this spiraling cost of the East Auditorium. It's gonna be, we thought it would be closer to $500,000, it's gonna be $13 to $18 million for this. For me, I think we would gain a lot of trust if we did a 2019 Vesica report, flowed out the projects outlined there, in simultaneous fashion looked at a basic feasibility study for consolidation, would there be even savings? If there are savings, nobody cares, but at least we would have that report. And marry those two things with, how do we even proceed? If we can be surprised to the tune of, let's say, $13+ million on one project, wouldn't you want to know there aren't 30 like that? And I think, to my friend's point here, people are pretty smart. People are used to sifting through lots of information. They have to. But at the same time, we may as well just be transparent because, frankly, we're not only going to need to pass a bond, we're going to need hundreds of millions of dollars flowing to this town for the school specifically. We may as well be on the same page. There's just no, the cat's out of the bag. So let's figure out how bad it is and let's just address it. And I think the board's moving to that, to their credit, but I think, time's taking.
$13 million for an auditorium when you're looking at 20 to 30 maybe to build a building. I would tell you that it's time to build a building.
what's wrong with the auditorium?
No, this is the East Auditorium.
I know, my kid goes to East, I just asked her what's wrong with the auditorium.
It's dated, but it's.
So I'm
been
going to
more
hold that
problems with the-
until we'll get the answer to your question after we close the general portion here. If you have, first of all, other ideas, you're driving home, you have a suggestion, you say, I wish I had said, everyone in the town, residents, parents, employees, has the opportunity to take a very brief survey with open-ended questions. If you haven't seen that survey, you can go to the website, but it's been pushed out over the last week. So please encourage other people as well to get their thoughts shared. And if you have specific, like I would just like to make this known for myself, you're encouraged to have that communication either through the business administrator's office or the superintendent's office. Very encouraged to do that. The next steps, except for the work the ad hoc committee will be doing, that's the next phase, right? Beyond that, it's not about transparency, is it? Not there yet, right? Still in the planning works. And we are very appreciative. The board is very, very appreciative of your Sunday afternoon and your most of all of your ideas.
What website are we referring to?
Cherry Hill Public Schools.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
district website.
Okay, so I mean, for those of us who do not have children in school.
You still have access, it's just the public.
CHPS.org.
Thank you. I was thinking about working on it myself.
www.chpsc.org.
Are there any printed surveys? I was talking to some of my neighbors and they're older and they don't have computers, but they did vote and they would like to give input, but they don't have computers.
We can do that through the library. We'll make sure that happens.
Because there's going to be hard
Yes.
copies at the library.
Through the public
Okay, I'll let
library.
her know
We
that.
can make that happen next week.
Thanks.
And the senior. Thank you.
CHCLC.
Thank you. And I hope you met a new neighbor or constituent, someone scribes, leave your notes. Scribes, leave your notes. Thank you very much.